Okay, and welcome back to our fourth and final episode in this mini series where we're discussing some of the challenges and advantages of hybrid and multi-cloud. In the last episode, we examined how Azure Arc works and functions and helps address some of those challenges. So I think, as with all technology, the so what question of it all comes up. So what are those key benefits of Azure Arc, and how are they going to help our audience overcome some of the challenges that they might be experiencing, and what benefits can they derive from that?
Yeah, sure. I think there's sort of three key areas where we see a lot of benefit for Azure Arc, and kind of got them, sort of up on the screen there. Starting with governance. So this really is about consistency of configuration, consistency of your approach. Doesn't have to change just because your kind of end point in terms of your platform, whether it's a private cloud, whether it's something out in another cloud, has to change. So as we spoke about this in one of the previous ones, you've made the move to public cloud. You've done a hell of a lot of work to get your standards right. You're using things like Azure Policy to make sure your configurations on your servers are static and don't change. Or if they do change, you get alerted. Or if you really want to, we can enforce those changes to put back what someone's done. That's really powerful, and you've done all that work within Azure, and it's great. Now you can extend that out and have that confidence that no matter where you're running these workloads, these servers look and feel like the ones that are within Azure. Being able to drop in another extension for monitoring. So again, a lot of the proliferation of tools that you see on-prem, where you're trying to cover different areas and things like that, if you imagine that times 2 or 3 different environments, it's a huge amount of tooling. So being able to just deploy the same tool, the same set of standards across these different environments, I think is really, really powerful. I would sleep much better at night knowing that I've kind of, the things that I've configured and the things that I've worked hard on are kind of, there, and reporting back. They're no longer, the tools within public cloud are built for services that are running in someone else's data center that you have no access to, so that all the information there has to be really good and clear about what's happening to your environment. You're now able to extend that out, to perhaps another vendor's private cloud. You're able to get information on that perhaps you wouldn't be able to get normally, and it just doesn't give you any blind spots within your environment. So I think that's key. That's one of the key ones.
And do you want to touch on the security side of things? Because what's interesting about what you've described is it reminds me of Intune in many ways. Yep. Where you have that ability. So rather than the endpoint being, a laptop, you're pushing out those enterprise policies to have that governance and insights into your estate through a single pane of glass. But this extends that out to the server estate. So that I find that quite compelling. And also, this something that's resonating with previous series we've done is it's the consolidation of tools by not having to spend money on tools. So you could have, an antivirus product from one third-party vendor. You could have a mobile access and device management product from another vendor. And then you've got your patch management maybe from another vendor. Bringing that all in means you're not paying those costs for those additional tools, which will also help mitigate the cost of change. So from a governance point of view, I find that really compelling. But can you touch on the sort of security side of it?
Yeah, I think the security side is a really good one. In terms of patching, we've all been there with a machine that's either been compromised or something that hasn't worked well because it wasn't patched. It got missed. There is no easy way of kind of reporting back on that. Arc allows you to then using the Arc agent allows you to then employ Azure automation, so the automatic updating. So straight away you're able to bring that in line with the different patch processes that you've got. It's such an arduous, boring task that it is so important to kind of keeping your environment secure, and you're able to bring that into your same patching process, if the servers are on-prem, all of a sudden something that you would have had to have done, perhaps you would have had to use a third-party tool to deliver it, is now just being delivered out of Azure, and you're confident that your machines are being patched. And those that aren't being patched, or if there is a problem, you're getting a report back on it, and you can go and look within Azure, across all of the servers. This one's missing a security update. You can look into why that is, but you can straight away, you can tell it to go and to deploy that straight away. So from a OS point of view, that's really, really helpful. And then from the other tooling sort of point of view, you've got the ability to deploy Defender for Endpoint. Perhaps again, where this used to be a separate tool where you'd have endpoints delivered for for servers being managed in one interface, and then perhaps the servers in Azure somewhere else. You can now pick all of that up within the Defender for Cloud Management within Azure. So again, really easy to go in, get a one page that says, I've got 1,000 machines. These are I'm getting an error. Where's the error? It's down. It's drilling straight down to this machine. We've got a problem with this machine. It's flagging an alert, or it's giving us a message. Can someone go and look into that, and address it just as it would as if it was in Azure. So, really good. So from a Defender point of view, you've got that. If for whatever reason you don't have anti-malware deployed on there, for whatever reason, there are some people that certainly if it's internet facing, I won't be doing it. But if there is, you've got the ability through the agent just to deploy anti-malware straight away. So you've also got a tool that will just go through and look, is there anything wrong with this VM? Is there anything that I need to address? And then, from a more on an individual basis, to actually looking at more about trends and looking at things like that, you can also then plug it in and pull that data into Sentinel, for example, as a service that will be able to look at trends, and perhaps something's happening, but it's happening across multiple VMs, but this is where this data is getting picked up, it's getting applied to other data that's being pulled into Sentinel, and Sentinel can start making sense of what's happening. So yeah, it really is is a gateway into all of the security services that are available within Microsoft, or like I said, all being managed through one pane of glass and through one vendor.
That sounds really compelling, because I've been reading lots of interviews from leaders within the industry that have seen the use of generative AI in the sort of trying to overcome people's weaknesses in their sort of security posture has grown exponentially over the last 6 months. I think I saw an interview with AWS saying that had grown 800% over 6 months, which they put down to generative AI. So actually that means if the attackers are increasing and their speed at which they are compromising is increasing, then your ability to have a single pane of glass view, so you can actually see what's going on and identify where your weaknesses is and be proactive, would be much more valuable than having a multi-cloud where you've got different systems that have different levels of capability, different reporting elements. So I find that really interesting. And so let's just talk, have a look at things from an architectural point of view. I think we've got a slide that we can look at, and maybe you can talk us through the architecture of Arc.
Yeah, so this overview is kind of what it's showing is, one of the previous episodes we talked about, getting down to how the agent works and the rest of it. And this overview really, I think, brings everything that we've spoken about together quite nicely. So in terms of, the top box there is Azure. It's allowing you to bring all that reporting back in, depending on where that, it doesn't really matter where you are, with edge devices, if you're on-prem, you're in multi-cloud, all of that's coming back up, and you'll be able to benefit with those, unified, policies you're using for Azure Policy. You're using one tool across for security with Defender. You're able to, apply, governance. So, if you've got policies that, associated with something that's important for your industry, and you want to apply that, if you've got if you're an NHS business, or, HIPAA or one of these, or even ISO, all these sort of industry standard things, you can start to apply that, not just within Azure, but then you extended that out to these different areas. And I think the bottom box is really important. It's kind of sort of showing you some of the similar things that can be deployed. Where the Azure Connected Agent is like the gateway for absolutely everything to be delivered from an extension point of view, and really uplift what you can do from the services you can deliver to those VMs, no matter where they are. Kubernetes here is an absolute star. So if you're able to manage Kubernetes and deploy Kubernetes within all these other clouds, you can then deploy services on top of that. And great example of that is SQL. So it's obviously ubiquitous. Everyone has some form of SQL somewhere. That can stay as your standard then, for across, no matter where you are deploying it. And you can use Kubernetes to run things like SQL MI. Now, just everyone's being, okay, yeah, great. What's it? It's SQL, who cares? But it's SQL MI. It's evergreen. You never ever have to do another update. You never ever have to do another patch. You don't have to worry about managing resiliency. You don't have to worry about backups. All of these sorts of things that you're just taking away, through one tool, I think is really powerful. And they've got in public preview at the moment Postgres as well. So if you have different flavor of SQL for that, and there'll probably be more to come for that.
Okay, John. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. I want to thank you for your time. So in this mini series, we've covered off that sort of multi-cloud and private cloud paradigm, the advantages and disadvantages. We've looked at how Azure Arc can help defeat some of those disadvantages and actually bring a unified control framework that you have in Azure and extend that kind of level of capability that you see in portal.azure.com out to the edge, to different clouds and on-premise to go and deliver those benefits. So I want to thank you for your time, John. Very much enjoyed chatting to you on this, and I'll see you no doubt in our next series. Thanks so very much.
Yeah, good to see you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.